And a good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, Interim General Manager at WEIU TV and Radio. Our guests today are from WEIU. News Director Kelly Goodwin. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And also in the other room, as we're practicing social distancing today, is WEIU and news and weather personality, Everett Lau.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for coming in, both of you. And I thought this would be kind of a neat show because, as everybody knows, with the COVID-19 going on, along with some, potentially ugly weather that we really missed but could have had over the last couple of weeks, just kind of how you two and the team that is left here at WEIU kind of produces and reacts each day to get the newscast ready for Newswatch at 5:30. So we'll start with you, Kelly, as you've kind of got a couple of weeks under our belt here with this new way of going. Talk about Newswatch and how you guys are progressing.
It is a new way of going. You couldn't have said it any better. Newswatch in its inception and what we've done for decades and decades is a nightly live half-hour newscast that's solely produced, directed, and edited by students at Eastern Illinois University in various majors, primarily journalism, communications studies, geology, geography. Obviously, that's what Everett is majoring in. And each day, we come in and we produce the nightly live half-hour newscast for our viewers. But the tide really changed. I have been here, it'll be 19 years in December, and the tide changed. Brewing in December of last year and then into January, you start seeing the word COVID-19 and coronavirus coming up in all these news feeds that we get. And when you see the word and you hear the word and you hear these stories, sometimes you kind of tuck it away because it's not in your front yard.
Yep.
At the time we were hearing about it, it was brewing in China, and then it was slowly migrating to other areas of the world. But again, it wasn't in my backyard yet. That's not to say that we didn't cover the stories, but I think it just wasn't front and center. And then all of a sudden it's like, pow, it's in the US. And I remember the gentleman that was anchoring the news that night, and that was our story, that coronavirus was here, it was in the United States. And I tell you what, your heart kind of skips a beat. It really does, because this thing is just taken over not only your professional lives, but your personal lives as well. I find myself in talking with family, that's all we talk about. It's whether it's we're going out, we're social distancing, we're not going to places, we're not getting to do things, how it's going to affect our lives, how it's affecting our community, businesses, small businesses, and then how it's affecting our life here. Yep. And it's just massive. And so we did regroup at WEIU Newswatch, and we had to. But we also had to think about the community that we serve and telling the community we're here for them, which we are. And so we have maintained our presence on air, on social media, online, and that is courtesy of a very small but dedicated staff that continue to come in each day and night to provide that information to the viewers and listeners we serve.
Everett, I'll switch to you now from a student point of view, what Kelly said and what you've done over these last few weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely a switch. Mainly because we've gone from the half-hour format down to the 5 minutes, which we had to do just because we don't have the number of students anymore. We've just kind of reassigned, and we're doing a lot more work as a team. Phil Collins, who's another forecaster, we alternate shows, and so we anchor both the news and the weather. That's one of the biggest changes that we've done, and so we'll basically run the whole 5-minute show and read the stories and then go into weather. And also weather's changed from the aspect that, people aren't getting out and about and is doing as much as they were, so it's kind of taken a little bit of a backseat when there's not active weather. And so it's kind of interesting to try to adjust our forecast, because we had, school forecast slides and all kinds of weekend events, and that's obviously not part of the forecast anymore.
And then Kelly, implementing the social distancing whilst continuing to provide a product. Talk about that.
We've really to change our workflow. Yes, we are on a very limited staff. It's myself and another producer director from WEIU, Lacey Spence. We work together to come up with all the stories for the day, and the stories really are endless, to be perfectly honest. Every facet of life has some connection to COVID. So we kind of go through and we talk and we decide what we're going to do and what little nuggets of information we're going to get out there. Lacey and I separate ourselves in the newsroom. I'm in my office and she's multiple feet away at another workstation in the newsroom. But when we do have other support staff and students that come in, we absolutely practice social distancing. We have edit bays here at WEIU. It's obviously a television station with a control room and a studio and edit bays, but we only allow one person in all day, and those areas are thoroughly cleaned. So one person in edit bays. We have 2 people in the studio at a time, which are feet apart, and then in the control room, we make sure that everybody is separate, apart, and all the technology is cleaned. I can't thank the building service workers at Eastern enough. They come around and make sure that we're okay. They clean chairs, they clean knobs, they clean light switches, all of those good things to make sure that we are safe. We have hand sanitizer dispensers and multiple entrances to the building, which right now we're limited to get in one area of the building. We're not going out in the community for the safety of the community and the safety of ourselves. So all of the news that we're doing is via phone calls with potential newsmakers or press releases that we get in, or other outlets that we have at our disposal to create the stories. It's just wild. It really is. I've spoke to some colleagues of mine in the business, and they say the same thing. They're under hiring freezes. Their staffs are limited. They're not letting the public in the building, or they're very careful on where they go and how they cover events out in the community. It's just, I've never, obviously, most of us have not experienced anything like this ever, and hopefully we won't ever again.
Yep. Now, Everett, from a student standpoint, what made you decide that, hey, I want to stay and help out? Because obviously we give the students all a choice of, if you just want to go home and do your schoolwork, you can, but you decided to stay. What made that decision for you?
Well, as Kelly mentioned, this is just something that most people, no one has ever worked before, and hopefully this isn't something we'll ever have to cover again. So from a standpoint like that, it was just an event that I wanted to be able to say, I covered it from the start when we started talking about this in January, and we saw it through Central Illinois, how it was impacting our community. And so that was the main reason that I came back. And this year I live off campus in an apartment, so I was able to not, because the residence hall is being shut down for the most part, I didn't have to worry about that, so I could stay off campus and work here. And I was also staying away from home and keep my family safe in case I pick up something over here in Charleston. Instead of taking it back to them, I was just maintaining distance there and then also helping the community at the same time.
And Kelly, I'll let you break this news to everybody, but News Watch is going to continue for a little longer than usual this spring semester. Talk about that.
We are. Really, because of everything we just talked about and wanting to maintain being here for our community, we are going to extend it through May, which typically, when the semester ends at Eastern Illinois University at the beginning of May-ish, May 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, I believe graduation was set this year for May 8th and 9th. Yeah. We're going to extend it beyond that, because there is information that our community needs to know and hear about, and we have committed to continue news past that date. So we're real excited about that, and we look to continue and continue doing stories in the county, in Charleston and Paris and Effingham and all the areas in between that are affected by this. And I do want to give Everett a shout out, because I don't think he gives himself enough credit, but he is here creating graphics. He is here giving weather reports, whether it's Facebook Live or online, and it's just Everett from Paris, and he has a deep connection to this community, and I'm just so thankful that he's here as as a support and as a student that just, loves doing this and loves being here and loves contributing to the product that we're doing. So it's cool to see that. And, Everett is one of a small group of kids here. And that's not to say that the students from journalism or communication studies that are part of Newswatch in the fall and the spring that aren't here, they're here mentally. But they, some of them have expectations and commitments at home that they have to take care of to help their families. And though they want to be here, they can't be here. And we know that.
We're recording this on April 13th as well as live on April 13th on radio. But why don't both of you put your news hats on right now and give us an update of where the state of Illinois is right now with COVID-19 in terms of cases and, what Governor Pritzker has put in place, and kind of just to recap that if you can. I'll let you go first, Everett.
Well, I know that as of yesterday's update, I think the state was over 20,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and it was over 83 counties, I know. So it's continuing to spread throughout the state. I think in our viewing area, the only county that has yet to confirm a case is Edgar County. And every other county has confirmed cases. So it's definitely in the community, and even in Edgar County, they're saying there's nothing confirmed, but treat it as like it is in the community, just so that you're taking the right precautions.
I think that's key, is that everybody should treat it as if it's in their community. And it is in our community. As of yesterday, Coles County has reported 7 confirmed cases, and while testing continues, I'm certain, not positive, but that there'll be additional positive cases here as well. You keep hearing, and this story does evolve and develop on a daily basis, but you hear the curve, you hear that term a lot, and they anticipated that this last weekend was going to be the peak in Illinois. There's still thousands of cases being reported each and every day, and that curve tends to get pushed back. So I think we're currently at the peak in the state of Illinois. How long that will last is TBA.
There you go. Now, since all the stories, or I wouldn't say all, but the majority of your stories when you're working on Newswatch, we know it's going to be COVID-19 or some kind of offshoot from COVID-19. How do you keep every day fresh and a little bit new so there's the viewers and the viewers get, that's like yesterday's newscast, but it's today. How do you keep it fresh?
That's a very good question, because each day at 2:30, the governor and also the health administrator in the state give a daily update, and usually that update is very numbers driven. There's this many cases, this many deaths, this many counties reporting, and we've struggled with that in the newsroom, because while we want people to have that information and to get that information, sometimes it's just over and over and over every day. People tune that out because it's like, oh, okay, well, another 1,000 cases in the state. So that is a challenge, Jeff, but we've really tried to put those numbers into perspective. Like when Coles County had its first case and then subsequent second case, or there's been areas where there's been clusters of cases, or we learned yesterday that a Terre Haute firefighter has passed away from COVID. So we try to break down the numbers as best as we can into a story that we feel that communities, counties would be interested in hearing. There was a group at a senior apartment living complex in our viewing area, and the state was trying to decide whether or not that the quarantine for that complex should be lifted. So we try to find stories like that. Today, for instance, Lacey Spence and I were going through some stories, and I found a story that when the pandemic was first very active and people were, when we were first hearing about it, products like hand sanitizers and hand soap, body soap, and toilet paper was a necessity, in that you couldn't go to the store and get any of those products. And my guess is you probably still can't. They're still hard to come by in a lot of different places. But now the tide has turned to hair products. And I know that might sound funny, but that's really, personal grooming. It seems we are running a little blurb, and the Walmart CEO said that's the product now that's flying off the shelves.
I wonder
is
why.
Hair color.
Just because people can't get their hair cut?
Hair cut and hair colored because salons are closed. And so that's a little nugget of information that's out there, and will be out there on our newscast tonight.
What have each of you learned so far in the process of doing news and sport, or news and weather? Everett, I'll let you go first here, but what have you learned that you're kind of amazed at this whole thing, at the process?
I think something that's been really amazing and just uplifting too is, while there's so much bad going on in the community, there are so many communities and organizations that are doing something for good. Like in Paris, the schools are really helping they were having weekly meal deliveries, and they were providing technology, and there's just a lot of organizations giving to hospitals, and people donating masks and supplies that are needed to many communities. And I think that's just something that's really good to see, that while there's all this bad going on in the world, there's still the good people showing up.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. The love of people comes out at a time like this, and I think that's evident on the little video that we had posted on our Facebook page last week. There was a little boy. He was having a birthday, and his family had reached out to the Charleston Police Department to see if they might drive by and honk a horn or flip on a siren just to make his name is Liam, make Liam's day. And lo and behold, 8 or 9 police cars showed up at 9 o'clock one morning and turned on their sirens. And I cannot tell you, just in watching that video over and over again, which I did, the joy on that little boy's face. And, I think that says a lot. I think it says a lot about the police department, and they're putting their lives out there. EMTs, fire departments, any healthcare worker out there, they're putting their lives out there, but they also are cognizant of the fact that people are hurting, and they're going to do what they can to put a smile on somebody's face.
And the other reason I want to do this show is because somebody says, well, you're just tooting your own horn. And you know what? Sometimes that's okay, because the importance of local media to be in a community like, the Coles County and surrounding area is important now, because we can get the news to them immediately, where, you're not going to get that on a satellite radio. You're not going to always get that in a bigger city where we can actually be here. And that's what we wanted to do when Dr. Gatrell gave us the okay to continue with news through Dr. Glassman, is that we said our importance here is that we want to bring this news, and with the updated weather, with knowing we're going into kind of tornado season, is to do that. So that's what we're doing at WEIU TV and radio. So if someone says we're tooting our own horn today, yeah, we are, but we're also doing it so we're showing you why we're doing it and behind the scenes, so we can continue to move forward. I think it's very important that that any local media supports their hometown, or in our case, our home area.
And I think we also have to understand that we are on the campus of a university. We're a learning institution, and think of the learning experience that our students are experiencing, not just the students that are working on the television side, but there are a few students working on the radio side. That, to me, not only is it a learning experience for me, but a learning experience for those students that are here with us.
Everett, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's just really good to show what WEIU stands for. And serving Charleston and Mattoon, we're kind of in the edge of 2 different main TV markets. Looking at the east side, you've got the Champaign, Decatur, Springfield stations, and then the Terre Haute stations. And each of those markets are responding to the main news to their main cities. So being at WEIU, we can focus on Charleston and Mattoon, obviously our main area, but we also have communities like Tuscola and Shelbyville and Effingham and Toledo and Paris, Marshall, all these other smaller communities that have just as important news to get out that some of those bigger stations don't have time to focus on.
The other thing I want to talk to you two about and ask you the question is, when you're doing the same news story every day, even though it's got offshoots, but it's also a negative news story. I mean, COVID-19 is not a pleasant thing to talk about. How do you both come into your work, and how do you motivate the staff to continue to stay positive, Kelly?
Well, the first thing I do when I come in is I unlock all the doors and I spray them all down and prop them all open so people don't have to use them. But The sad thing is, and I'm not speaking for all journalists out there, but I'm sure if any are out there listening and they hear this, they understand. Sometimes you just, because you do it and live it every day, you sort of become immune to the story. And I don't mean that negatively in the job that we're doing. I sort of mean that personally, because this is a story that affects us all. And I think especially this last weekend, I kind of took a step back and thought, yeah, it's my job and I have to get the news out there and we have to get stories out there, but this also affects me, and it also affects my family, and not always do we cover stories that cross both sides of the fence, and so it's hard. It's hard as a motivation. I try to tell those that are working each and every day that they're appreciated, and I thank them for doing that, because like you said earlier in this interview, they don't have to be here. They are volunteering their time to continue a service that they too feel is important. So that's something that I struggle with as a news director, to split between the journalist and here's the story we have to tell, and oh yes, that story that we're telling does affect me.
Everett, how do you stay positive, my friend?
Well, I just try to come in and give a lot of credit to Kelly, just because we haven't really changed too much. Like, our goal is to get the news out there. And so it just helps to come in, and we still have our casual banter in the control room when we're working. So from that aspect, it seems fairly normal. And like she said, it's just kind of, you're immune to the news, which is weird to say to most people, but we just report it so much, and this story is hitting home quite literally in many people's cases, and you just try to take one day at a time and know that you'll get through it eventually.
One of the things I've said, and you say it in the right way, is that it's also an exciting time for news when there's a big story like this that you kind of feel like I've got to get out there and do even better than I would maybe on just an average Tuesday news watch. Is that how you feel? I always remember that when I started out in radio news, when it was just a boring news day, I didn't care as much, but now it's like you have to perform and almost get to that next level. Absolutely.
It's hard to describe the feeling, because on one side of it's stressful and there is anxiety that comes with it, but then on the other side of it is it is almost a thrill to come in and see what's going on, and you're peeled to other outlets, you're peeled to the state of Illinois to see what's going on, you're anxiously awaiting reports from health departments to see what's going on and what's out there and where are the clusters and how many cases are out there, and I just remember what it felt like when we heard the news of the first case in Coles County. And actually I was in my car, Jeff, and I heard you broke in on HipMix to say it's we have our first case, and I just remember I kind of stopped in my vehicle. I was pulling into the parking lot, and I just kind of sat there a moment. It's like, boy, we talk about it being other places, as I mentioned how we felt back in December and January, and now it's here.
Yeah, the only thing I can relate it to is the 9/11 attacks. I mean, in terms of how you feel, but that was a shorter term period. Kind of the attacks were really just that one day, and then the aftershock was a few days, and then you kind of got back to somewhat normal. There is no sense. There's no insight. I told everybody it's like when we're released is like Christmas Day, but it's never going to be December 25th until we know it's December 25th. So it's the oddest feeling of not knowing where we're going, and the anxiety is the big thing. And here we are, April 13th, and we don't know what's going to happen April 24th at the Board of Trustees meeting, May 1st when the next announcement or whatever comes. So as we go forward, what are your guys' feelings about how we maintain this momentum, but also the chutes and ladders of where this COVID-19 is going to go in the news and weather world?
It's ever changing, but we're always going to be here, and we want to help the community in whatever way we can. If that means providing them with a little bit of news and a little bit of weather, we're going to continue to do that. We're going to be very careful with the information that we put out there, fact checking, make sure that we're telling the stories that we think that the people want to hear and would help their lives. I don't think that's going to change. And we're going to continue to make a commitment to weather. and they were hit hard down south over the weekend, and that's something that we monitor also very closely, thanks to our weather team that includes Everett and Phil Collins and Kyler Hauser and Cameron Craig. So I think we're going to continue doing what we're doing and always keep community in the forefront, and hopefully continue telling the stories that they want to hear and know that they can trust us.
Everett, you are also doing a lot of the social media over the weekend. I know that your forecast on news on Facebook this weekend. I watched a lot of those when you gave your updates. Talk about how that's kind of become part of what we do at WEIU and your involvement in social media.
Yeah, I think especially now that our airtime's down to about 5 minutes, we can produce unlimited amounts of content on social media. So I think that's really a key going forward, is if our news time is 5:30 and the nightcap at 9:57, we can provide an update, whether a link to a story, or we can hop on Facebook Live and provide updates. And the same with weather. Whenever weather hits, we can be on air on WEIU TV, or we can jump on Facebook Live and give people the information they need to know, whether we've got severe thunderstorm or tornado warnings in the area. And that's something our weather team's really strong at right now. Both Philip Collins and I and Kyler, we're able to hop on, give you guys updates, and back to what we're supposed to be doing, and we can do it on either social media or on air. So it's just another tool to use.
Compliments have just been so nice from the community, and I think too it's nice that Everett can interact with the community. I know he had a viewer or a listener kind of reach out, and Everett, you could share that story, which prompted some of the Facebook Live material that's out there currently.
Yeah, we had some viewers reach out, and we've had pictures shared with us, which always helps because we can forward pictures to the National Weather Service, and that helps them know what's going on. And just the thank yous that people are saying, thank you for doing this broadcast, because especially in severe weather, sometimes thunderstorms will knock out the power and people can't watch their TV. So everyone typically has a cell phone, and if it's charged up, you can hop on Facebook Live and still get the information. So I think Facebook Live is a really neat aspect to be able to use in this day and age when covering weather specifically.
All right, we got about a minute left. We're talking to Everett Lau and Kelly Goodwin from WEIU TV News Watch. Anything we forgot that you'd like to get out there real quickly?
I just want to say thanks to the viewers and the listeners, and feel free to reach out to us if there's good news happening in your community and you'd like your story to be told. news@weiu.net.
Everett,
just a thank you to everyone that's watching, because without your support, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing.
Very good. Kelly Goodwin and Everett Lau, appreciate you coming in so much. I know it's all the way down the hall, but and if you were wondering, we are following social distancing here in the studio. So Everett's in another room, Kelly's over at another desk. So we do appreciate both coming in today, and we look forward to 5:30 News Watch tonight.
Thank you. I
Thanks for having
appreciate the
us on.
opportunity.
We are WEIU. Everybody have a great day.